The night was late in the spacious office of Michael Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Restaurant Group. The silence was interrupted only by the faint hum of the computer and the ticking of the clock on the wall. He was tired but wanted to review the last employee requests before calling it a day. Most of the requests were routine: shift changes, payment adjustments, time off requests. Nothing unusual. But among all those messages, one caught his attention. Would it be possible to take home the leftover food after my shift? Michael frowned. The request was signed by Emma Carter, a line cook who had been with the company for just over a year. He couldn't recall ever hearing a complaint about her. Never late, never absent without notice, always working until the last minute without question. The simple question echoed in his mind. Employees usually just asked the manager or discreetly took leftovers at the end of their shift. But Emma had formally submitted the request. He pulled up her profile in the system. 24 years old, no emergency contacts, no listed family members. Michael leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. Maybe she was just being frugal. Some people preferred taking food home rather than spending money on meals. But something about the way the request was written felt different. This wasn't about saving money, it was necessity. The clock read 10:47 p.m. Emma's shift ended at 11 p.m. Driven by an instinct he couldn't quite explain, Michael grabbed his coat, shut down his computer, and left the office. Outside, the parking lot was nearly empty. Through the kitchen window, he saw Emma finishing her shift. Her dark hair was pulled back into a loose bun, a few strands falling onto her forehead from the heat of the grills. She moved quickly, efficiently, like someone who had done this 1,000 times before. A manager passed by and handed her a brown paper bag. She thanked him with a small smile, tucked the bag under her arm, and left through the back door. Michael decided to follow her. Emma walked to the nearest bus stop and waited. The bus was late. She crossed her arms, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. She looked exhausted. When the bus finally arrived, Emma boarded without looking around. Michael started his car and followed. He wasn't sure what he expected to find, but something inside him told him he needed to keep going. The ride was long, much longer than he had imagined. At each stop, he thought she might get off, but Emma remained seated. The streetlights became sparser. The buildings gave way to small houses, some visibly worn by time. And then finally, Emma pulled the cord to signal her stop. Michael kept his distance, watching. She walked quickly, without hesitation, without looking around. She turned a corner and disappeared between a row of parked cars. Michael took a deep breath and followed slowly. And then he saw it. It wasn't an apartment, not even a small house. Michael parked a few meters away, careful not to be seen. The night was quiet, the only sound coming from the occasional car passing in the distance. Emma unlocked the door and stepped inside. A dim light flickered on, casting soft shadows against the thin windows. Something tightened in his chest. 3 children ran up to hug her as soon as she entered. A boy and 2 girls, too young to be her children. Siblings, perhaps? Moments later, an elderly woman appeared, walking slowly. Her gray hair and careful movements revealed the fragility of old age. Emma helped the woman into a chair before placing the paper bag on the table. Michael held his breath. The food wasn't for her. He watched as Emma carefully opened the bag and began dividing the meal. 4 plates, not 5. She made sure to smile at her siblings, joked, laughed with them. But she didn't touch her own plate. She simply cut the food into small pieces, moving them around without actually eating. Michael felt a knot in his throat. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a pattern. Emma worked all day without rest to ensure her family had something to eat. Michael thought about his own dinner that night, a refined dish at a high-end restaurant, a meal that cost more than Emma earned in several days of work. And he hadn't even finished it. Now, in front of him was a young woman sacrificing her own hunger to feed the ones she loved. Michael closed his eyes for a moment, trying to contain the frustration rising in his chest. How had he never noticed this before? How many other employees were in the same situation? At that moment, a thought struck him. His company had been thriving. Profits were at an all-time high. The executives, himself included, had received bonuses this year that could have covered Emma's rent for an entire year. And yet, here she was, struggling. He picked up his phone and made a call. A sleepy voice answered on the other end. "Sir, it's midnight. Is something wrong?" "Yes," Michael replied firmly. "We need to change everything." And that very night, the changes began. The next morning, Emma was called into the manager's office. She was handed an envelope. Inside, a significant raise. Enough to rent an apartment. Enough to eat without guilt. Later that afternoon, Michael personally made an announcement. A new policy. Leftover food would no longer be discarded, but distributed to employees who needed it. Employee wages were reviewed and increased. A new emergency support program was launched to help workers facing financial hardship. For the first time in a long time, Emma didn't have to pretend she was okay. And Michael? He walked into work that morning as a CEO. He left as a leader. How many people around us are silently struggling? If you have the power to help, don't wait. Do something today. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And we want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a similar situation? What would you do in Michael's place? Leave your comment below. Let's talk. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.